Let's play a game.
Hello and welcome to We Kill Dragons, the show where everything's made up and the XP doesn't matter. I'm Jaryth.
And I'm Jake.
And we're going to be talking to you about gaming. Not so much gaming news, as we're going to be talking about the implications, cultural and otherwise, of video game and role-playing game culture. In particular, today I'd like to talk a little bit about gamifying our daily lives. You know, we've all had that thing happen where we got laundry to put up, so we put the basket on the other side of the room and we throw it in there and, 2 points for getting it in, that sort of thing. But I'd like to explore the idea of taking that to a higher level, maybe even gamifying education. I've always had this problem with the way that the education system works, because you walk into a class not having done anything and you have a perfect score. And from that point forward, everything that you do fucks up your perfect score. That's a little bit demoralizing, I think, because nothing that you do numerically, at least in the mind of the learner, is improving your situation. I think it would be really cool, rather than to have that kind of scoring system, instead to have something kind of like XP. So you walk into the classroom with nothing, and as you demonstrate that you've learned certain skills, you add XP. And at a certain number of XP, you have achieved a goal and can move on, kind of like proving that you, on a test, that you know the stuff, that sort of thing. And I think it would be really cool to incorporate actual gaming into the process as well. Imagine if history class were done as a very large group role-playing game. Like, you know how old Doctor Who was, at a certain point, I think it was like second or third Doctor, it was basically like a history lesson every week? I think it would be really cool to turn it into a game in that setting, so that you and your students, or these characters, of course I guess the teacher would be the GM, but the students are characters in this antebellum setting, and we're going through the Civil War, and you get to see different parts of that and interact with it, almost like in person, kind of like they did in Assassin's Creed. I just think that would be a really cool idea, and I think it would be a lot better for the morale of the students. What do you think?
I think very little would get done in a lot of classrooms. That sort of thing has the potential to spark people's imagination, kind of make it fun and interactive, and maybe there'll be a pleasant case of helping a couple of kids come out of their shells or something like that. But as soon as you walk into like a school and say, let's play a game, or let's make it like a video game, or like any kind of thing that's just not school oriented, there's kind of an associated stigma, especially in American society today, where video games and gaming and anything, frankly, fun is responsible for murder and war and everything wrong.
Well, you'll notice what the status of the American education system is.
Awful?
Poor. Yeah.
It could be extremely fun, or it could be just an idea that gets shot down immediately. Because, fun in school, that's only allowed if you're on the sports team.
I think it's going to be all down to the teacher. It has to be managed correctly, because it could very easily turn into, let's just have fun and ignore our goals. But if managed correctly, I think it could both be fun and informative and educational. I don't think those ideas are necessarily mutually exclusive. I remember those computer games they used to sit me on where it was math problems or typing tests, and the more you get right, the faster your car goes. And that was kind of fun.
I mean, you can make education fun and have games involved in that, like typing tutor kind of games can be fun. I think we've all played a game at one point where you type in the word quick enough and it shoots an asteroid heading towards your ship or something.
Exactly.
That sort of thing's enjoyable. But, you gotta be careful to draw the line between, kind of making it into an interactive experience in education and it being just kind of, a very ridiculous session of drama class in terms of, kind of acting things out or something of that nature. And if you're a kid like me in high school, that would be the one thing I'd never want to do. And the fact that I took a theater class and actually did well in it is amazing. I guess this would kind of have to be like a high school sort of thing, because I don't think anybody younger than that, anyone below 9th grade, would really take it seriously, or they'd just be too embarrassed.
You might be surprised. If you start young enough, I think there's a tendency to... I find that you actually have to get up to a certain age before that sort of stigma of standing out and having an idea happens. Before that certain age, if it's something that the whole class is doing, well, I want to be a part of this. This seems like fun. I think it would be really fun to kind of blur that line between the days, because everybody had those days in school where you come to school and for one whole day there's nothing productive to do. You just kind of hung around and had fun. But if you kind of blurred that line where, yeah, maybe some days you did come in and we were just playing a game and nothing really productive happened, but that was going to happen anyway. But maybe on that day, because what you're doing is this game, something productive accidentally does happen.
It's also worth noting that, in high school I had all of, 2 friends that, and most of those 2 I didn't really like. And it's very antisocial, very standoffish, didn't really want to be around people. I didn't mind being at school, I liked doing well at that, but I just didn't like people, especially students, or teachers, or human beings. So, I'm at a...
I just want to say, most of those 2 you didn't like.
Yes. Let's say there was more than 2, but only really 2 at a time.
Gotcha.
So like the 2 kind of changed, a bit. I was always very awkward and not prone to doing anything that I didn't really have to do. I always hated speaking and always hated getting up in front of people, and especially because I always hated the people that I was around. So if I'm quick to shoot down your ideas involving education, it's because I hate school, and I'm pretty much just going to shoot them all one day. Let's face it.
Well, yeah, and I wasn't quite to the extent that you were. Not quite to the extent that you were, but I was always an introvert myself. I didn't have very many friends, and I've found that, and I mentioned this last week, I've found that since I've started role-playing games specifically, I've had to deal with, even if it's in character, I've had to deal with thinking on my feet and figuring out how to react to somebody in real time. I've gotten a lot more social since I started playing. So that might even be a useful tool for kids in that regard. Right.
This actually does kind of go back to what you were saying a moment ago with the putting it in the hands of the right teacher who knows how to handle that sort of thing, because as much as I was always antisocial and just kind of uncomfortable, I did take that theater class. I took 2, I think. But the first year, it was a teacher that actually made it seem like a good thing to do. And it was enjoyable. Yeah. And I did really well in that class because you'd have a book with bits and pieces of plays. And, your objective that day would be to memorize it or just perform it. And I don't know how many people would get up there with the book in view so they could look at it and basically just read it out loud while gesturing to it, or something like that, or they'd have to kind of stop and like, what was that next bit? Whereas I was one of the very few that was able to actually read it, then get up and without looking at the source material at all and just perform it. And if I didn't know a line, or if I forgot a couple of words, instead of fumbling and being like, well, what was the next word? I would just approximate it to the best of my ability and keep going.
I did that as well, and I remember it was that class, and it was when Miss Jackson was teaching it.
Yes, Miss Jackson.
Who I assume is the good teacher that you were referring to.
Uh-huh.
I loved taking that class with her. There was a scene that I had to do where my character was angry for some reason, and there was a window involved. So I can't quite remember what the scene was or why, but for some reason there was opening a window and shouting out of it, which I actually did.
Yes.
Because luckily enough for me, the windows actually opened in that room. Otherwise, I was going to look really silly.
Yeah.
But I actually opened it and shouted out of it, and there were people out there who had no idea what was going on.
Right on, dude. I did the same monologue. I know exactly what you're talking about. I remember because I didn't get to open the door, or the window, I mean, because I think there was like blinds and things obscuring it, and I didn't feel like having to go through that process of potentially fumbling with that and just being a stupid head. So I actually went to the door because the door has the kind of rectangular window in the middle of it. So I was just kind of beforehand, I was like, I'm going to use the door window there instead of trying to operate another window. So I just got up and started saying stuff, kind of pacing, kind of sat down, distraught, upset, and got up, went to the window. I was yelling and everything, and I actually did pretty good. And Miss Jackson was actually really, really impressed, she seemed. So I actually really enjoyed that. It's surprising that I would ever have done that. But for some reason, it just kind of struck me that these other people were sucking really hardcore, and that I had a chance to show them up. I was like, I could do this. This is just a bit of acting. It's nothing else. This is a short monologue. I could be upset. I don't like being here. I'm not happy. Fuck it. I can do that.
Channel that into your performance.
Yes. I'll just be myself, but I get an excuse to yell stuff. So I'm just thankful that I didn't accidentally start dropping F-bombs. That may have happened. It very well may have happened. But
yeah, when you get into the character and you're used to speaking like that in your daily life, that's a very serious risk that you have to take.
I almost got very real with it, but it didn't happen, and I didn't have to look at the book, and it was so fun. And I think if you could really find a way to get more kids into that kind of mindset of like, here's something that's fun, and maybe if you could find some way to go like, you can do that, and you can do it better.
That's a delicate spot to edge around as a teacher, though, because you don't want to tell another student, you can do that better than this person did, because you don't want to make the first one feel bad. But if you can set up the situation to make them think that.
Yes, exactly. Like, just Jedi mind trick them.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it without making the first kid feel bad, then you have the skills.
Because after each, kind of performance that the people would do, there'd be like a moment of, well, you were looking at the book a lot, or, I noticed you kind of fumbled or whatever. So you get to see the performance, see them mess up, and then hear how they messed up. Get to hear someone analyze it. And then, well, I know what they did wrong. I can learn from that and do it better. Or not, maybe not try to be better, not try to, be, involved in a situation of like one-upsmanship. But you can certainly learn from what other people are doing, which is kind of the point of history. Again, bringing it back around. If you can throw that, into like a history class, where instead of just being like, and then, the armies invaded, and then the blah, 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 blah. Like, screw that. Actually get someone to be, I don't know, the king of a warring faction. He gets to be like, go forth and conquer. Like, there's always going to be a kid in that room that's like, I'm going to be the king today. That could be potentially exciting. That could create enthusiasm, and you could learn something that way. I'm not sure how you would throw in, XP exactly or something like that, but that could be done realistically.
I'd like to point out, too, that class that you brought up is one of the reasons that I wanted to get into role-playing games in the first place. I had so much fun in that class just becoming another character for a little while. It was the kind of spark in that escapist desire that led to discovering... I don't think I really knew what D&D was until one day when I saw Will Wheaton and the Penny Arcade guys playing a D&D game. And I suddenly wanted to do that.
I like that you didn't think, you know what, I'm going to go maybe try to join a dramatic club and maybe do a play, kind of acting.
I did think that.
Or did you?
I did think that. We grew up in such a shit-splat town that there wasn't the opportunity for that.
I suppose.
There were no drama clubs. There were no theaters.
I mean, like maybe like in college, then I don't really hear about this sort of thing until, later on, moving out of that town and away from our parents and stuff. I just choose to think that you were like, you know what, I like this kind of becoming another character, another person. But instead of going, for, I don't know, King Lear, how about Orc Slayer?
How about King Lear, Orc Slayer?
Oh, that's even fucking better, man. Why aren't we doing that right now? That's how we could work in Hollywood, man, with ideas like this. Why be Abraham Lincoln when you can be a fucking vampire slayer? Why be those two things when you could be Abraham Lincoln, a vampire slayer?
I love that kind of historical, you can't prove it didn't happen kind of a thing.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it's presented so well. Fantastic book, by the way. You ever get around to reading it?
I haven't.
Do it. Have you seen the movie? I forget.
Not yet, no.
Oh, damn, do both.
Speaking of things that I may or may not have thought of myself, I would like to take a minute before we go any further to thank Alexandra Alexandersson. She's the Swedish artist that's responsible for the silhouette of the dragon that we use in our logo. And she has been kind enough to allow us to use that and edit it as we please. So I want to give a shout out to her. You can check her out on DeviantArt. We're going to put a link in the description. She is pretty fantastic. She does a lot of tutorials and stuff, so there may be some stuff to learn from her if you're an artist, especially one who wants to draw dragons.
Yes, more educational stuff. And from someone who's Swedish, so you know it's the real deal.
Ha!
Those guys make the best meatballs.
I mentioned last week about how I've gotten to the point where I role-play other games that were never meant to be role-played, like Magic the Gathering. When I brought that up, there was this one card that I had intended to mention that I forgot to, and that's a card called Chosen of Markov. She is a vampire flip card that her ability is you can tap another vampire on the field and turn her into a vampire. When she comes onto the field, she's human, and she becomes a vampire. But I've gotten to, the point where it's not, I'm going to tap this other vampire, and she's going to flip. And on the other side of the battlefield, you notice that one of the vampires is biting one of their own allies. Wonder why that's happening. Flip the card. It's always such a surprise, too, because she's in a sleeve, and you never know she's a flip card until she flips.
There's like a whole drama there unfolding on the other side of the table. These vampires biting each other and shit. What's going on over there? Notice there are, several cards, or several monsters or creature types that, latch on to other creatures and kind of create this, symbiosis that's, hopefully beneficial. It'd be kind of fun to make up little backstories as to how they know each other and why they're okay with latching together. Yeah, it'd be kind of fun.
Is that the soul bond mechanic you're talking about?
Maybe. Don't hold me to that. It's been a while since I played Magic.
That's sad.
It is quite sad. And not only are the cards, they're not really buried. I know exactly where they are. I could get to them in about a minute if I really wanted to. But then the one person I can play with is never really here to do so. And when she is, we're doing other things. It's my wife. So.
Right.
I need to get her on here one day and we can talk about shit.
That'll be fun.
Oh, they were really fun. She did some, tabletop games and whatnot. I actually gave her a hard time about that. You hear a lot of stories about people going off to college and, they change, they meet people and, there's always dramatic stories, usually from people who got, dumped by their, significant other who met someone else while at college. But I never thought I'd have to worry about that with her. But, one thing I never would have expected would be for her to come back as a D&D fan.
Some girls come back from college with stories of how their boyfriend did them wrong. She came back with stories of slaying dragons.
Yes, she went off to college, a bit nerdy, and then came back just nerdier than I could have imagined, man. Like all of a sudden she's talking about D&D and fucking Pokemon and anime and stuff. And it's like, wow, really? I didn't know you were quite this much of an awesome person. We always had a lot in common, especially when it came to like music and movies and shit like that, comic books. We could sit around talking about Batman all day, but I never would have thought that she would be like, I went on an epic quest today. I was an elf. At the time, that sort of thing seemed a bit too nerdy for me. So I was like, ha ha ha, you're playing D&D. What a dork. And, so it's actually doing some kind of, I forget what the game was called, but the campaign was basically vampire stuff, and she may have been like a vampire elf or something like that. But I would love to get her on here and talk to her about that and just kind of get the female perspective, what that was like. Because I'm pretty sure she was like the one girl in the group, very frequently at college, and she'd be surrounded by all these dorky dudes who were just like, hey girl, you wanna play? We got a campaign going. You can be a vampire.
That's the general MO of any girl who plays D&D, I think.
It seems like that.
They tend to be the only girl.
Yeah, she's just that fucking awesome. That's why I married her. Because she's awesome. I mean, she got more awesome. I mean, she really leveled up at college. That's the one thing I can say. Good times. I wish I was that awesome.
Before she went to college, wasn't most of her nerddom because of you?
Maybe. I think she always had an appreciation for stuff like Batman, and she was into anime as much as kids are in a way they don't really know about. Because, you probably don't... When you think of anime, Digimon probably doesn't come to mind, or, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh!, stuff like that. But she was into those shows, and she was into the card games associated with them. So she always had that with her. I think she actually went to see the first Pokemon movie at the theater. They handed out these special promo cards and shit, and she had one or whatever. So there was always a bit of that on her own. She had that, but then once she made the gigantic mistake of asking me out, I just amplified it, because I took her interest in like these card games and these cartoons that she still loved, and basically added on, comic books. It's the primary thing, and then really turned her on to video games in a big bad way. And then once I started like buying her comic books, I started buying her the newest issues of Batman and Wolverine, then it just kind of exploded. And then college happens, and it boom, explodes again. She's coming home, and she's like, you'll never guess what happened in this episode. Fucking Tamahome was just like, rah, and he's the guy, he's voiced by the guy that does Solid Snake in those video games you play so much, Jake. And I'm like, what? Because, that's how you connect to me, man. If you can trace anything you're interested to back to Metal Gear, I like it. That's how I roll.
So I've got a question, and I think this will be an interesting thing to find out. As somebody who's never really played a tabletop game aside from one kind of half-ass session that we did while you were half asleep.
I was fully asleep part of that, I just want to say.
I want to know, if you had any kind of campaign world that you could choose and any kind of character, what kind of character do you think you would have the most fun playing?
Oh, what kind of character? Well, I would want it to be a world that isn't necessarily defined by a single genre. I'd want it to be a cool mixture of things. It would probably be something closely resembling like Final Fantasy 13. There's a lot of different kind of design and genre elements to that, where it's, a fantasy game, but there's a lot of strong science fiction elements to it, layered with religious propaganda and political like intrigue, stuff like that. It's a multi-layered sort of deal, with lots of action. There's some scary shit, so it's got horror in it and everything. So sci-fi, action, horror. with, I'm not sure what kind of character necessarily. I guess I'd have to really know what kind of world it was. Maybe have, some more details about that world to kind of figure out what kind of person would exist within it. But probably someone with a really big sword that folds up very conveniently. I like that sort of thing.
Oh, definitely. I love the mix and match genre thing. The game that I play on Friday nights right now is, it's got a lot of sci-fi going on, but for the most part it's like Victorian steampunk. The characters we play are part of the MI7, the Ministry of Peculiar Occurrences or something like that. I forget exactly what the long name is of our organization, but it's basically Men in Black. But instead of aliens, we've got vampires and werewolves and the typical fantasy weird, plus some interesting science fiction takes on the typical fantasy weird. And I think the most fun that I've had has been, at least so far, has been in that world where I was playing an elf who, like, elves, when I came into this game, before I made that character, elves weren't part of this setting. My GM, and this is David from my Friday night games that I mentioned on last week, he did a lot, he and his wife Heather both did a lot of sitting down and tinkering with rules to make me able to play an elf, because I really wanted to play an elf mage. And this wasn't really the setting for an elf, so my elf became a part of this very secret society where elves are among you. They're everywhere, but in this day and age, to keep themselves secret, they surgically round off their ears at birth, kind of like circumcision, but less gross. And it became this interesting little secret that my character got to keep. I noticed that after that character was born and had been in the game a little while, my GM started to bring in other characters who were also of that kind of high fantasy genre that had previously not been a part of this game. It was a lot of fun to see that development happen.
That's really cool.
Just the idea of being a mage character was one of the really appealing things to me, which, oddly enough, the GM had to talk me into. I had originally made this very stealthy kind of... He was going to wind up being Victorian steampunk Batman. This very stealthy, assassin-y kind of shrouded character. But after I made that character, GM says, we don't really have anybody who can do magic in this party. Would you mind terribly filling that gap for me? So that's when I made Auralia, my aforementioned elf.
For a moment, when you were mentioning how that your GM had to tinker with some of the rules to work in the inclusion of elves and things of that nature, it's kind of brought to mind a group of horror enthusiasts who were setting up a game that was basically going to be like an untold tale of Friday the 13th. Just like Jason Voorhees was going to show up and everything, and they were just going to have fun with that sort of thing. But then one member of the group just wanted to be an elf so bad. It's like, I'm playing this game, I gotta be an elf. Dude, it's fucking Friday the 13th. I know, but I just really want to be an elf. It just feels right, playing this game, it's another world, or being other people. It would be really fun, I think, to be, something far removed from the real world. It's Friday the 13th, man. What the fuck is wrong with you? That's how awkward that whole night would go. I get to see the GM just gets mad and just fucking kills off the elf guy immediately. And it's just like, but elves can't die. They're immortal. Only until they're killed, man. Didn't you fucking read Lord of the Rings, you dumb elf bitch? Get the fuck out of my basement.
So Jason's coming with a machete, and the rest of your party is going, okay, I'm rolling my running die to get away as fast as possible. The other one's going, I'm going to try to hide. And you're going, I'm going to lightning bolt. Lightning bolt. Lightning bolt.
Well, I mean, hopefully this person is familiar with the settings of, Friday the 13th, and they'd be on the archery range, perhaps, of the camp. setting up a very good reason for the guy to have a bow and arrow, as elves are wont to do in situations like this. But if the person had logic on their side, they probably wouldn't be a fucking elf in Friday the 13th. But in the world of role-playing games, if that's just what you want to do, that's what you can do. That's the whole point. I like to think that someone's doing that right now, and that maybe someone will hear this, and they'll think, you know what, I'm doing that shit.
I'm glad you mentioned Friday the 13th and just a specific IP there, because I also wanted to ask, what do you think about the idea of throwing in a bit of pulp fiction into role-playing games, having references to existing fiction that you and the other players like having references to, say, Doctor Who or Tolkien specifically?
Like, would the characters reference things, or would there be, like, allusions to Doctor Who within the game in the form of, I don't know, a time-traveling box?
Yeah, it could be that. It could be a character that would just played a minor part in an episode, shows up in the game, that kind of a thing.
Ah.
I actually have to stop myself from saying what I was going to say for spoilers because, yeah, spoilers. I have some ideas as to how that might work. I'll just say that.
I'll tell you right now exactly what kind of game I'd want to play. I want to play fucking Halloween the RPG. I think that would be so much fun. Because then, like, you could basically make the GM's goal to just kill everyone. And so, the player gets thrown these obstacles and opportunities to maybe set up, like, a trap or something like that to throw off the killer or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun. Maybe there's, like, clues and maybe, like, backstory. You could make, like, a whole game just out of, like, delving into, like, the backstory of fucking Michael Myers as presented in Halloween 6. The Curse of Michael Myers, the director's cut especially, or producer's cut, whatever it's called, where there's all sorts of just messed up stuff involving, like, rituals and cults and all this weird, like, magic shit going on. That could be enjoyable.
Definitely. Logistically, though, I think a campaign where your GM is out to kill everyone and the character the GM is focusing on will not be satisfied until absolutely everyone is dead. That kind of campaign would have to be something that you could find a way to do in a single night, because if your character is half as good at killing everyone as Michael Myers was, you're going to have 4 or 5 of your player characters like, okay, I made it through half a night, now I have to roll up a new character. Or I'm just out of the game, might as well not show up next week.
Yeah, definitely. I would actually enjoy that. It's like a one-off murder-thon. That'd be really fucking fun. Ooh, or you can make a game where all the characters play, like, notable slasher film villains.
So it would be like Freddy versus Jason versus Michael Myers versus whoever else you can, like Chucky, throw Chucky in there.
Versus whatever poor bastard gets stuck with Leprechaun.
And everybody hates those two people for the same reason that everybody hated anybody who chose Oddjob and GoldenEye.
That's something I've never really heard of. Like, this is kind of turning into like almost like competitive RPG. You're just out to kill everyone else.
That's actually an interesting idea. We do that in video games with games like Halo and Call of Duty, that kind of thing.
Your multiplayer
That would be kind of a fun idea. Just multiplayer your, like, PvP RPG.
Right on. Because we need more initials for the conversation. More ways to stumble over words.
Hang on, I'm going to be late for the PvP RPG because I'm going to Mickey D's to get a BLT. I got caught watching TLC, so BRB.
I'm pretty sure you're officially a rapper now. I think you just graduated, man. Level up, dude.
Ding.
There you go. Phenomenal. That'll be an interesting concept. Possibly worth exploring. I've never heard of anyone doing that. We need to look it up, see if anyone's done it, and documented it online. And if not, we can do it and claim to be the first. So there you go. And then we can rub it in everyone else's noses. Get on Twitter and haha, Will Wheaton, you didn't think of this, did you dumb bastard? Haha. You might be on Big Bang Theory every now and again, but I'm Freddy Krueger. So what you gonna do? He'd be so jealous of me.
Well, Wheaton, if you listen to this is officially a challenge. We've got to play this game.
Yeah, I like to think that he'd hear this, but somehow I doubt it. I'll post a link to it on his Twitter every day for a month until he listens to it. There's some advertising. Just get banned from fucking Twitter. You stalking Will Wheaton, man.
It would be a lot of fun. I'd have to say that would be on a list of dreams come true, because Will Wheaton is one of the reasons that I actually played role-playing games in the first place.
That would be cool. But I think he's too high profile for us right now, which is unfortunate, because we need celebrity pals so that we can get money from him somehow. Not that I would ever do that to anyone, Will Wheaton. Please don't leave me.
That segment wasn't creepy enough already. Sure.
No, it wasn't creepy enough. I had to. Well, I'm not satisfied until people are like, "What?" And maybe they're thinking about, clicking X on the browser, close this, I don't want to listen to this anymore because it just got creepy, but it's just too interesting to stop. So that's me appealing to a very specific crowd, man. We gotta appeal to people if we want to have an audience. So if you're not gonna be the creepy one, I guess it'd be up to me to do that. I will do that for the show. Anything for the show.
I'm interested, now that we're talking about it, if there was anybody who you would want to play a game with, be it a video game or role-playing game, who would it be?
This is easy because I already answered the question. Because you already asked it, because we had technical errors and had to record this part a few times. I would get David Hayter, and he's the voice of Solid Snake and Big Boss in the Metal Gear Solid games. And basically I would just want to sit down and have him say the lines as they come up in the game. And that would be fucking awesome. I could mute the characters, have subtitles on, so whenever Snake is talking, he'll read the lines, and I could be the other characters. And we'll just do that all day. And then I'll ask him stupid-ass questions, and probably make the whole thing kind of awkward. But it'd be kind of cool.
Oh, it would be a lot of fun, but I wonder how many times he could take you going, Snake? Snake? Snake!
Well, I mean, if things are going my way, he's just gonna have to deal with it. And in this game in particular, Metal Gear Solid 3, it's a prequel to the entire series and my favorite game that I've played so far of the series. As a result, if you try to kill certain characters in the game who should only really be knocked out temporarily, the game will end because you created like a fucking tear in the time-space vortex or something. Like if you create like an anomaly like that, the game ends. It's like, he's not supposed to die. You've changed the events of the future. And you got to go back. So I would say all those lines to him, and he could say funny things back in Snake voice, and he would only be allowed to talk to me in Snake voice.
Is that not just his voice?
No, it's not his voice. It's not his voice at all. He's such a normal sounding guy. Like he sounds just like any person, just any normal person off the street. It's just he talks like a normal guy, but then he does that incredible fucking gravelly, intense voice that is just gold being like shoved into my ears every time I hear it. And it'd actually be a very cool person to hang out with because, you know, I came to know the person. I don't know him, but I came to know of him through Metal Gear and his work as a voice actor. But I mean, he's also a very successful screenwriter. I mean, he wrote the first 2 X-Men movies. He wrote The Watchmen. Yes. And there's actually a story associated with that. I don't know if I want to tell it. I'm going to tell it. He actually wrote... You've seen Watchmen, right?
Yeah.
You know the story and how basically one of the dramatic points, toward the end, spoiler alert, is that this horrific event happens and basically, millions of people die in New York. It's this terrible event. And to show that sequence would basically be to, like, just blow up New York and show all these dead bodies and stuff. But he got the job to write that movie literally, like, the day before 9/11.
Ah.
Yes. He is technically Canadian, but spends a lot of time in America and basically considers himself like Canadian-American. I think he may actually have dual citizenship. So he didn't really want to write that part into the movie, and that's kind of why he changed the ending around from the comic.
Right.
And not to mention a giant squid, which just looked really stupid in a movie. But he wrote that movie, and he's done some other things. He's actually he just wrote and directed a movie for the first time, a film called Wolves, which is a werewolf movie. So he's a person who's done a lot more things than just what I know of from video games. He'd be an interesting person to talk to. He's got a lot of stories about Hollywood and people. So I dig that sort of thing.
Very cool. I actually would like to spend an evening with a group of voice actors. There's this fantastic thing they've done at least once. They might do it every year at Comic-Con, where they get a panel of voice actors to sit down and read lines from a popular script in their various characters' voices. So, like, Tara Strong will come around as various characters in Star Wars, but reading the lines as Harley Quinn or Raven from Teen Titans or Bubbles or just whatever they decide to do at that moment.
Oh, exactly what you're talking about.
I really have a lot of fun watching John DiMaggio do that.
Oh, hell yes. Absolutely. I would love to assemble just my favorite voice actors to do that sort of thing. But it would be Clerks. I would get David Hayter. I would get...
Wait. Can we put Jay in the voice of Bender? That would be great.
Yes, I would get... what's the voice actor's name? I forgot again. Already.
I think that's John DiMaggio.
John DiMaggio. He's also Jake in Adventure Time.
Right.
So I would love to have him there. I would have David Hayter, Troy Baker, who's in Bioshock Infinite and the Final Fantasy 13 games. Speaking of Final Fantasy, I'd probably get Allie Hillis to be Lightning from Final Fantasy 13. I would have her be Dante's girlfriend, and then fucking David Hayter would be Dante, so you'd get Snake just being like, "You suck 36 dicks," and she'd be like, 37? Like, I'm 37? Liquid! Oh man, that would be the most amazing fucking thing on the planet. You know what? Yeah, if I got cancer and was young enough to qualify for Make-A-Wish or some shit, I would just assemble all of my favorite voice actors from cartoons and games and just get them to read Clerks as the characters that I know them as. And I would go sit there in a room probably with you, my wife Casey, and that's probably it. Just us three. And we would just listen to Clerks come to life with all these characters.
Wait.
And I'd die happy.
Wait, we've got to have... and we've got to have, Billy West do the voice of Fry for Randall.
That would be a pretty cool Randall. Absolutely. That would be really
Oh, man. There's something to put on the bucket list. A little bit below putting a slinky on an up escalator.
See if you can create perpetual motion.
Right. Did I tell you about my lucid dream the other morning?
No, you did not.
This is something that could actually go on the show. So I have this routine in the mornings where I'll get up and I'll get dressed and put all the necessary things in my pockets and eat breakfast and that kind of thing, but I always have this little gap between when I'm done with all the things I have to do to get ready for work and when I actually have to leave to go to work. So I've got this, and I realize it's a terrible habit, but it's a habit that I thoroughly enjoy, of sitting down somewhere comfortable, closing my eyes, and just drifting away until my phone goes off to tell me it's time to go. So the other morning I had particularly few things to do because I had been too lazy to go shopping, so I had nothing to eat for breakfast, and I just got up and put clothes on, put things in my pockets, went into the living room and sat down on the couch, or laid down rather, and covered my face to keep the light out of my eyes, and I drifted off to sleep for the next 20 minutes until my phone went off. But while I was sleeping, well, to tell it from my point of view, I woke up laying on that couch, which I say it's a couch. It's like a little love seat. I was kind of bunched up with my legs crossed over the other arm and my head against the one arm. But I woke up on that love seat, and I start to notice that everything's backward. Like I had previously been laying with the back of the couch on my left, and now the back of the couch was on my right. And I was still facing the door, so I hadn't turned around in the couch, and I'm starting to go, wait a second, everything's backward. So I look down at my feet, and I go, am I backward? So I wiggled my left foot, and my left foot wiggled. I wiggled my right foot, and my right foot wiggled. I went, well, I'm right. It's the rest of the world that's wrong. And then I realized I was dreaming.
Should be.
And that was probably one of the weirdest things that's happened to me all week. And then that dream started jumping around as dreams do, and I saw my roommate go out the door. This time the room was the right way around, but I saw my roommate go out the door, and I noticed for some reason his bright green shirt. And after I eventually woke up when my alarm went off and went to work and went about my day, I assumed that was part of the dream. But then I came home and my roommate was actually wearing a green shirt. I started to question it. Apparently it was actually part of the dream. He said he was asleep until long after I left, but it was an odd coincidence, I thought.
That is weird.
But I'd really be interested to see if lucid dreaming could have an actual application. Like, if we could turn it into a virtual reality to game in. Like, there's this mask that's been developed where it's like a sleeping mask, one of those little blindfold things. But on the inside, there are sensors that can tell when you go into REM sleep, when you're doing the rapid eye movement thing.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it flashes little red lights. Not so bright as to wake you up, but enough so that hopefully that red light will sort of invade the vision of your dream, and you'll start to realize, hey, I'm dreaming, so that you can use that as your cue to turn it into a lucid dream. Like, the goal of the product is to help you teach yourself to dream lucidly on purpose. And I've had lucid dreams, at least one lucid dream before. It's really a funky feeling when you realize you're dreaming and you're in control of yourself, but you're still dreaming. But if you could do it on purpose, and if you could make a habit of doing it on purpose, I think that would be one of the most fantastic forms of, like, escapism ever.
Yeah, I could basically see that turning into a Philip K. Dick novel very easily, and I want it. If I can get that, put it on, take an Ambien, just see what happens.
Yeah, it apparently takes quite a while for that cue to become your cue to realize you're dreaming. But once it does, according to the sellers of the product, you can actively, purposely go into a lucid dream.
That's amazing. Well, we have talked about a lot of things, from education to my apparent man crush on David Hayter. And in between there were laughs, but like all good things, this must come to an end. Did we learn anything? Is there anything else worth adding on?
Well, yeah, I learned in the course of the conversation that there's more thought than I expected to be put into the idea of gamifying education, or gamifying anything in your daily life, but I still think it's a good idea, and I think it's something that should be explored. If you have any other ideas, you want to talk about the idea of education and gaming and education, or if you caught on to something else in the episode that you want to chime in on, leave us a message in the comments. You can find us on Tumblr. If you have any art that you'd like to see turned into one of these fantastic logos you might have seen, make sure it's something you have the rights to, but certainly send it to us, and we will turn it into one of our logos. Until next time, I've been Jaryth.
I think I'm Jake, but I'm going to have to check with you on that later.
You have to make sure the wife's okay with you being Jake.
Yes. I mean, no, nothing. No.
And this has been We Killed Dragons. Have a good night.
Good night.
Ha 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 ha.